Friends, welcome to the subject software engineering. At present, we are in chapter system models and we are studying object models. In this object models, we have got three categories. Earlier, we have today we will deal with the first category, that is inheritance models. Point number one, inheritance models belong to class object models. Object-oriented modeling involves identifying the classes of objects that are important in the domain being studied. Students have studied object models in the previous class, and today we are studying inheritance models, one of the types of the object models. So when you are working on the object models, you have to identify the class of the objects that are important for the topic under discussion. Point number 3. These are then organized into taxonomy. A taxonomy is classification scheme that shows how an object class is related to other classes through common attributes and services. Students, taxonomy is a science of classifying the objects and show how different objects are related to each other with the common attributes and services they have. Inheritance model. Point number 1. To display this taxonomy, the classes are organized into an inheritance hierarchy with the most general object class at the top of the hierarchy. Students, you have studied inheritance and hierarchy in your object oriented programming, that is in the Java subject. You know the superclass is on the top and subclasses are in the bottom. That is, subclasses or inherited classes copy some of the characteristics of the superclass or the parent class. Point number 2. More specialized objects inheritance their attributes and services. Students, the specialized class, that is the children class or inherited class, have some attributes from the parent class and they add on their own attributes and services. Point number 3. These specialized objects may have their own attributes and services. Students, yesterday we have seen one diagram where you have checked a part of a class hierarchy for the library. In that diagram you have studied yesterday, in the superclass there is a library item. Below that you have got sub items like published item and recorded item. So this library item is the parent class, and published item and recorded item are subclasses. Point number 4. The figure in the next slide illustrates part of the simplified class hierarchy for the model library. Students, in this diagram, which I will be sending with the PDF also, this diagram I have sent yesterday. You have got here in all 7 rectangles. One rectangle on the very top, it has got 3 subdivisions. Yesterday we have seen first subdivision talks about the name of the object, next talks about the attributes, and next talks about the functions or methods. So I got here library item at the very top, that is the parent class, whose children or subclasses are published item and recorded item. Again, in the published item you have got subclasses as book and magazine, whereas in recorded item you have got subclass or inherited class called film and computer program. So subclasses inherited properties from the superclass. Class hierarchy for the library. This hierarchy gives information about the items held in the library. Students were referring to the diagram in the previous slide. This diagram is also with you. I have sent it in the PDF. Today also I will send it as part of the PDF. The library holds various items such as books, music, recording of films, magazines and newspapers. So students, library have got variety of study material such as books, music, recording of films, magazines, newspapers. In the figure, point number 3, the most general item is at top of the tree and has set of attributes and services that are common to all the library items. Point number 4. These are inherited by the class published items and recorded items. Students, as I told you earlier, published items and recorded items are subclasses or inherited classes of the main class called as library item. Now this published item and recorded item add their own attributes that are then inherited by the lower level item. So hierarchy goes down below. Now we have taken one more example of user class library. This is one more diagram related to library, and we are studying here various users who take help of the library. So library user is the parent class, and we have got reader and borrower. So these go to the library. Reader reads into library. Borrower borrows the books. So these are kind of library users. So library user is the parent class, and inherited classes are readers and borrowers. In borrowers, we got two categories. One is staff, another is student. Students user class hierarchy. We will study in detail the previous slide. The figure shown in the earlier slide is an example of another inheritance hierarchy that might be part of the library model. Students, so there is one more figure talking about the library system. Here we are considering the users. In this case, the users of the library are shown. Point number 3. There are two classes of users. One, those who are allowed to borrow the books called as borrowers, and those who may only read the books in the library without taking them away. These are called readers, that you can see in the previous diagram. Now we will speak about the UML notations and inheritance. Point number 1. UML stands for Unified Modeling Language. In UML notation, inheritance is shown upwards rather than downwards, as it is in some other object-oriented notations or in the language such as Java, where subclasses inherit from superclass. Students, you have studied the concept of inheritance in the Java, but there hierarchy is showing pointing downwards. But here in the software engineering, particularly in the object models, we show arrow pointing upwards. So this is a little difference you should take note of. So in UML notations, we have got arrow pointing upwards. That is point number 2. That is, the arrowhead shown as rectangle points from the classes that inherit attributes and operations to the superclass. So here arrow is pointing from inherited classes to the superclass. Point number 3. Rather than using the term inheritance, UML, Unified Modeling Language, refers to the generalization relationship. So students, in UML we speak about generalization relationship for the word inheritance we have studied in object-oriented programming. So there is different terminology here. Class hierarchy and simple inheritance. Point number 1. The design of class hierarchies is not easy. So the analysts need to understand in detail the domain in which the system is being installed. Students, when you have to develop various models, you have to have thorough understanding about the system, and this is more particular when you are going to develop a object model. Point number 2, the figures, that is library class hierarchy and user class hierarchy, that we have studied in earlier slides, show class inheritance hierarchies, where every object class inherits its attributes and operations from a single parent class. So students, till now we have studied simple inheritance. Okay, that is, there is single parent class and there are one or more, okay, inherited classes. But you have studied in object oriented programming, there is something called as multiple inheritance also. So we will be studying what is multiple inheritance in this object models also. That it comes in the next slide. Multiple inheritance. Point number 1. Multiple inheritance models may also be constructed where a class has several parents. So students, okay, in the simple class or simple inheritance model, you have got one parent and more number of children. That is, there is single parent. Children can be one or more. Whereas in multiple inheritance, the parents are two or more. So parent classes are more. Point number 2, its inherited attributes and services are conjunction of those inherited from each superclass. So students, the inherited class here takes, okay, the attributes and services are two or more classes. Point number 3, figure in the next slide shows an example of a multiple inheritance model that may also be part of library model. So students, we are going to see in the next slide, okay, the case of multiple inheritance, but this figure also refers to the library. So you got here figure showing the multiple inheritance, that is, there are two parents and one child. That is, superclasses are book and voice recording, whereas subclass or the children class or inherited class is talking book. Okay. So here book has got attributes like author, edition, publication date, ISBN, whereas other voice recording has got name of the speaker, duration and recording date. And the inherited class is talking book. So this inherited class, okay, that is talking book, takes attributes from book as well as voice recording class. Now this multiple inheritance has certain problems. The main problem with the multiple inheritance is designing an inheritance graph where objects do not inherit unnecessary attributes. Students, you know, that is, okay, inherited class takes attributes from the parent class or superclass, but here the child class should take only required attributes. So in the multiple inheritance, as you know, there are more than one parents. Okay, so you have to select only required attributes in the subclass or inherited class. So this is one of the main problem in multiple inheritance. Point number 2, the other problems includes the difficulty of reorganizing the inheritance graph when changes are required. Student, you know, system is always dynamic, changes do occur. So if the changes occur, you have to change the multiple inheritance graph. So there again there is a difficulty. So these are the two problems with the multiple inheritance. So students, today we have studied, okay, object models. In that category is inheritance model, okay, and other two models belonging to object category, that is object aggregation and object behavior modeling, we will study in the next class. I will be sending PDF of this. So this topic is very simple to you, as you have studied object oriented concepts earlier when you studied Java. Hope this will be very simple to you and you will study it. Thank you.